This is a public service message by the Ohio Department of Higher Education, the Ohio Cyber Range Institute, and the University of Dayton Center for Cybersecurity and Data Intelligence. A lot of people do transactions online with various organizations. More than a few of these use some variant of electronic transfers to or from a checking account. If you use PayPal, for example, you need a checking account attached if you're going to receive funds. Utility companies, insurance companies, banks, and government agencies often do the same sort of thing. The problem is that to do these things, you need to provide your checking account number and bank routing number. In short, everything that one needs to access your checking account via something banks call the Automatic Clearinghouse, or ACH. Employers often use ACH for payroll deposits, for example. Of course, when you think about it, checking accounts have always been exposed to this. The simple act of writing a check means that whoever received the check has the routing and account numbers. Unlike fraud that happens via ATM or debit cards, ACH fraud has very few protections for consumers. Unless reversed a very short time after it occurs, the funds may be lost, or at best subject to determination by your bank and its insurer if it'll be covered. In any case, while all that's going on, you lose access to your money, even if it eventually turns out to be a temporary loss of use. Remember, any breach at any entity where you do ACH transfers, utilities, government agencies, and so forth, potentially reveals your account information to hackers if that entity is breached. One way is to limit who knows your account and routing numbers. But if they're necessary for things such as utility payments, PayPal accounts, and so forth, that's a challenge. Of course, some banks do offer controls for ACH transfers. You could ask that filters be placed on transfers from your account. This can be set to limit transfers to specific payees or maximum payment amount. You can also ask that all ACH transfers must be approved by you before they are paid. However, not all banks offer these features. Another way, if available, is to set up two-factor authentication with the bank so that transfers are more difficult to do fraudulently. Two-factor authentication means that instead of just a password to log on to an account or authorize some action, you need a second factor, for example a token or a text message sent to your phone, to verify that the person trying to do the transaction is really you and not somebody who stole your credentials. Another answer that some use is to create two accounts. One of these has a limited number of entities that can access it, and the other that you use for the bulk of your ACH transfers. In my case, for example, I have one account that only my bank, my employer, and I know about. That account is where my pay goes. The other is one that ACH transfers are done with. It never has more than enough money in it to pay the currently scheduled bills. It adds a bit of complexity, but if somebody gets access to it, I'm only out a small amount. The advent of electronic payments means that there are more ways than ever for bad actors to attempt to attach themselves to your money. However, if you educate yourself and take precautions, you can enjoy the convenience of ACH payments to your utilities, banks, and government entities, and so forth, and keep your money. This is a public service message by the Ohio Department of Higher Education, the Ohio Cyber Range Institute, and the University of Dayton Center for Cybersecurity and Data Intelligence.